Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Can you hear me? Oh good, now I can start. Once upon a time, life was simple. There was the Brompton tyre for your Brompton, unless of course you wanted a racing tyre when there was the Kojak. So there was no choice anxiety at all. Fast forward to 2023 and we have a much larger choice of tyres. We're going to run through what tyres are available for your Brompton from factory and aftermarket, including some which aren't in the pile. If there's any tyres you're particularly interested in, we put a chapter in the timestamp below. Right, let's get these out of the way and we'll get to the factory fitted options. We are going to split this video into 3 parts. 1, what you can configure on your Brompton bicycle from the factory. 2, what tyres are available from Brompton aftermarket. And 3, the other Brompton tyres that are available for your Brompton. It's summer 2023. Don't be fooled by the rain. If you were to buy a Brompton Sea Line, not to be confused with a Sea Lion, it comes with an option of a Marathon Racer tyre or a Schwalbe Kojak tyre or the Marathon. This is the Schwalbe Marathon Racer. If you get a new C or A line Brompton, this is the tyre it's most likely to be fitted with. It's rated 4 out of 7 on Schwalbe's scale. 7 seems a very odd number to us, but both Schwalbe and Continental use it on their puncture scale. Any idea why? It's a 35-349 size, and it has an inflation pressure of between 65 to 110 psi. It is rotational, and it has some tread, although it was designed for use on the roads. This is a wired tyre, which means it has a metal wire around the edge, as opposed to some other tyres that have a Kevlar bead that means that they are foldable. If I'm honest, on all of our bicycles that we ride, we have replaced it with something that provides a little bit more puncture resistance and we prefer. We'll come on to our choice later. It has a reflective bead on the edge of the tyre to help you be seen at night. You may be asking why I have a bag frame in my hand. Well, I'm going to use it to put it on the balance, tear it, and then hang the tyres on it so I can weigh them. The Schwalbe Marathon Racer weighs in at 256 grams. That is according to our scales. You could choose a Kojak. Why is it called a Kojak? Well, it's named after the fictional 1970s detective played by Telly Savalas, who was bald. So it has no tread. None at all. So if you want to go fast, this might be the tyre for you. It has a reflective sidewall. The size is 32-349. It's rated 4 out of 7 for puncture resistance by Schwalbe. It is a folding tyre. So if you wanted to carry a spare with you, you can just pop it in your bag. They are very easy to fit. The recommended inflation pressure is between 70 and 115 psi. That's quite hard. The Kojak weighs in at 202 grams. The Kojak, who loves your baby? The Marathon is a very similar tyre to the Marathon Racer. It's got a similar tread. It also has a reflective sidewall. However, when you feel it, it is thicker, and that's reflected in the puncture resistance scale, which is 5 for the Marathon. It's a standard Brompton size, 35-349. It has a recommended pressure of 65 to 110 psi. It is harder to put on than a Marathon Racer. Not quite as hard as a Marathon Plus, but harder to put on. It is a wired tyre, and it is rotational. Shall we weigh it? It weighs in at approximately 411 grams on our scales. The Continental Contact Urban. If you get a P-Line or a P-Line Electric, it is most likely to have one of these. Well, from the factory it comes with one of these. Continental are relatively new to the Brompton tyre market. We heard a rumour that the managing director at Continental likes riding a Brompton, so maybe that's why. Anyway, back to the tyre. It's a 35-349 size, and it's a recommended pressure range of 65 to 115 psi. It has a reflective sidewall, and it's a folding tyre. Please don't fit it with tyre levers though, because we have had a few people put their tyre levers through the edge. The Continental Contact Urban folding tyre weighs in at 229 grams. One thing I forgot to mention, it's rated to e-bike 50, which I don't really think is relevant for a Brompton, but you can use it on a faster bike. If you are lucky enough to have had the opportunity to purchase a T-Line Brompton, it will be configured with a Schwalbe One Black tyre. These used to be an option on the P lines. It is a racing tyre, so it has very little tread, although it is rotational. The recommended pressure range is between 65 and 100 psi. It is not e-bike compatible, so don't think about putting it on your Brompton electric. It also doesn't have a puncture resistance rating at all from Schwalbe. So the good thing is it's a folding tyre, so you can take a spare one with you, or two. The Schwalbe One weighs in at 113 grams. It doesn't have a reflective sidewall, although it does have reflective biting, so you should have reflectors fitted to your bicycle. It's really, really easy to fit when you get a puncture. They are lovely looking tyres, and we used them on our Brompton for a race around Stockholm, and we got slowed down by having a puncture. But the good thing is, we now know they really are easy to change. If you had any ambition of making your Brompton tubeless, these are not the tyres. They are designed to be used with tubes. So now we're going to run through all of the tyres that are available from Brompton aftermarket. Please bear in mind that the tyres do have a tendency to come and go as the fashions come and go, like this Kojak Tan Wall that you can't get anymore. First up, we have the Schwalbe Marathon Racer. It was originally launched with the first Explore bike. It is a folding tyre, so it comes out of a box. It's a standard Brompton size, 35/349. It's rated 4 on the Schwalbe puncture resistance scale. It weighs approximately 350 grams. But I'm not going to take it off to wear it. Sorry. As much as we liked him on the desk, we took him off because it's quite heavy and is blocking the light. Next up, I have the Schwalbe Almotion naked wall tyre. It is a folding tyre. It was released with the Barber bikes, or at least that's when we first saw it. Let's take a closer look. It's designed for touring on your Brompton, so not off-road, just giving you a bit of tread for riding on the roads and your long touring. It's rated 4 out of 7 on Schwalbe's puncture resistance scale. It feels kind of similar to the other tyres that are rated 4. So the only tyre that we haven't weighed on the aftermarket versions is the new Almotion naked wall tyre that weighs in at 241 grams. We then have the Continental Contact Urban Black. We've been through him, so we're not going to go through him again. Next, we have the Continental Contact Urban Dark Brown Tan Wall. It really has the same specifications as the black tyre, so we're not going to bore you and go through them again. You can just skip back to that section. We then have the Schwalbe One Black, which we've been through before. We have the Kojak, which we've also been through before. The Marathon, and the Marathon Racer. That leaves us with our last one, which is the Schwalbe One Tan Wall tyre that came with the Chapter 3 version 4. It doesn't have a reflective sidewall, nor any reflective writing. It also doesn't have very much puncture resistance, and it has an inner tube that we find punctures quite frequently. So I would change these before I went out on my Chapter 3. But that is just my personal opinion. If you're interested in the specifications of this tyre, please just pop back to the black version. It's the same, minus the reflective writing. So now, Chapter 3. Aftermarket tyres for your Brompton. This one you don't want to get run over by. Starting with the Continental Contact Urban cream wall tyre. We're not going to run through the specs of this tyre. It is the same as the black one, apart from it's cream. We have, which is probably our favourite tyre, the wired version of the Continental Contact Urban. It's e-bike rated to 25. It has a size of 35/349 and it has a reflective bead around the edge. The recommended inflation pressure is for 65 to 110 psi. The wired Continental Contact Urban, weighing in at 278 grams, is rated 6 out of 7 on Continental's puncture resistance scale. We really like this one. We have the Schwalbe Marathon Plus, who actually was definitely our favourite tyre before the Continental Contact Urban came along. Brompton don't recommend it because they believe it interferes with the mudguard. We've used it for years and had no problems at all, ever. It is slightly harder to fit. We've made a couple of videos on how to install it. But when you've installed it, don't rely on a little squeeze that it's pumped up, because it's actually quite firm. It has a reflective sidewall. It's a 35-349 size. This is rated 7 out of 7 on Schwalbe's puncture resistance scale. They call it unflattable, and it really is quite firm. We've ridden it for a number of years and not had punctures. The Marathon Plus weighs in at 487 grams. It is rotational and has quite a good tread. We have the aftermarket Kojak. Don't be fooled, it's not the same as the Brompton Kojak. It doesn't have a reflective sidewall, although it does have reflective writing. It's also rated 4 out of 7 on Schwalbe's scale, and it's a wired tyre rather than a folding tyre. The Schwalbe Kojak with label weighs in at 225 grams. Finally, a specialist Brompton tyre. This is the one you don't want to get run over by. It's a studded winter tyre. Rumour has it that this was introduced because Schwalbe's managing director wanted a winter tyre for his Brompton. So thankfully we got one. We've done a detailed review on it before, and we'll put a link in the description below. It really is awesome on snow and ice. These are quite tricky to put on, I'm not joking, because they're a bit like Marathon Pluses, which are quite challenging, but they're spiky, so you need to keep the spikes away from your hands. I had slightly sore hands after I installed them, but I think they're worth it. We're not going to take it off to weigh it because I don't want to have to put it back on. It weighs 465 grams, which is quite heavy, and I think that might be something to do with the 72 metal studs that are in it. It gets pumped up to between 65 and 110 psi. It is the narrowest of all Brompton tyres at 30-349. Kind of makes sense for snow and ice though. If you're conscious about your Brompton's weight, I would go for the Schwalbe ones, but they don't have a puncture resistance rating. So if you're worried about having a puncture and you're worried about your Brompton's weight, I would go for the Kojak, because at least it has a puncture resistance of 4 on the Schwalbe scale. If from this stack of tyres I was going to choose one to install on my Brompton, it would be this, the Wired Continental Contact Urban. And actually, if you look behind on my 2 bicycles, that is what I have installed. I find it great for puncture resistance and it rolls really nicely. So that is currently my tyre of choice. If, however, you are a fashion victim and you want coloured tyres, you can go for either the cream or the brown Tan Wall Continental Contact Urbans. And they give you quite a good puncture resistant rating, 6 out of 7. Or if you're fashion conscious touring, you could go for the Naked Wall Almotion tyres. These seem quite nice. If you liked our video about our stacks of tyres, we'd really like it if you gave us a big thumbs up. One last thing. We get asked a lot how much they cost. Well, we don't mention the cost because they vary by time and in different countries. So I'm sorry, we haven't listed them. We're going to run through what tyre options are available. Should I say they should only be used with tubes, like the Kojak? It has, no, and you should pump them up to, don't know. The Marathon Racer weighs is that really, it's not 9 grams, it can't be 9 grams. It was in ounces. It weighs 9 ounces. It weighs in at approximately 100. It has a reflective sidewall. I've run out of stuff to say about it now. I did really well, and now I don't know what to say. There was this, the Brompton tyre, for your Brompton. No, what was I saying? Once upon a time there was a Brompton tyre. There was... Do I run through all the specs again? So it's 35... It's got an annoying box. I can't open it. I forgot. It still weighs in at 241 grams. This one looks like he's got squashed on the way to us. It'll come out when we fit it. It has a reflective tan wall. A reflective tan wall? It is rotational and it has quite a nice thread. Thread?